So I'm going to do an upcoming video where I make a Faraday cage, and I believe I shall use this bin, which I think it came from someone who worked at a TV studio or a radio studio or something. Maybe it's military. Either way, I bought this and a bunch of other radio shielding things. So if it's not already made for shielding radio waves, then it would probably do a good job with a few modifications, because it is solid and has like these nice big clamps that connect each thing around. And in case you're not very familiar with that, that is because, well, you know, like if there's ever a nuclear bomb detonated over our country, then pretty much the radio wave blast will be enough to where it can destroy all of our electronics, and that would be bad, because then I would lose like the past decade of my life in digital form. And I mean, sure, like our world would be destroyed as we know it. We would go back to like the 1950s, but if we get past that, I would still feel so bad for losing all my data, because it's like that was so much of what I did lost. And so what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to put like a laptop and a cracked version of Windows, because the cracked version of Windows does not need to have the internet to activate it. So in the future, if there's ever an accident, then I can always reinstall Windows on the machines, and then we can actually do stuff with it. I'll have some Linux. I'll have some. I'll put one copy of my USB hard drives, because I have 2 hard drives, samples of each thing, at the least. And so then I can put some of those in there, and it'll be a nice little digital backup, because that's a really big container. Now, I mean, if it actually happens, that'll be a pretty bad day. Like, holy cow, that would be really bad. We do live like 60 miles from a big city, so like, I believe modern warfare entails smaller nuclear warheads with a much more pinpointed target. Because you don't need to obliterate everything. You just need to take out the key, like cities and whatnot, to really mess everything up. But you know what? It's a little bit fun to put this together, because even though I give preppers a lot of shit for all their crazy overboard stuff, I happen to already have this stuff here, and like sometimes I'll just be sitting in bed like, I already have all the stuff. I have a laptop I don't use, I have a hard drive that I don't use, I have all of this stuff, and what if I just didn't take the extra step to put it together, and then something happened, like an EMP bomb went off over our country, and then I lost everything. Well, we all lost everything, but I also didn't protect what I had. And so I think since I already have this stuff, might as well put it together. But here's the real question. What other things do you think I should put into the Faraday vault? Let's call it that. Not a Faraday cage, it's a Faraday vault. So what I'm thinking is I will put my laptop on there. I'll put a few hard drives in case one of the hard drives gets kind of messed up. Have the several ways to install an operating system. I might put in one of those small handheld ultra-mobile PCs, which are like the little like waterproof ones, because that would be nice to have a second machine. I will add a power supply, and I will add an inverter so I can go from 12 volts to 120 AC, because in the future, if the world ends, well, not really ends, but if there's a huge setback to our civilization, then I would not want to be stuck with a lot of equipment and no way to power it. Now, I don't think it would be very difficult to have 12 volts generator, because I could build a 12 volt generator from scratch. But making an inverter is far harder. Making a x86 or x64 computer from scratch is that's just out of the window. That's just out of it. Yeah. I'm trying to think what other things, because I was going to make it kind of funny, because I was going to kind of, like, the video, when I make it for my main channel, I'm going to kind of play on my paranoia a little bit, like, joke around, like, haha, it's the end of the world. Well, as far as I can. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of, like, just doing it for my own, like, my own thought process. So it's like, okay, I got that covered in case something does happen. We got a bunch of food, got a bunch of water, got a bunch of that. Now we have them for all other things, like, I'm not really prepping, it's just that we happen to have a well-stocked pantry, and we happen to have some things of water in case, like, we get snowed in or something like that. And so I don't think I'm going overboard, but by just rearranging some things, it can make me feel a lot better and a lot more prepared for any possible things in the future. But I am in a bubble of my own thoughts. So let me know, what do you think I should add? Because here's what happens. When an EMP blast happens, when a nuclear bomb detonates, the electromagnetic rays go out and they induce a charge in all of the electronic devices. So let's imagine you have an antenna for radio. Now, radio waves are bouncing around, and whenever a radio wave goes into a piece of metal, it actually induces a charge. That's why you can actually get electricity from big pieces of metal. Like you could hook like a circuit to a radio tower or some big piece of metal, like a building or something like that, and then you can actually harvest power from that, because all of the radio waves are just putting like a very small amount, like barely even enough to light an LED into the building. Well, actually, that's also what your radio picks up. So you have like the very faint little bit of electricity in the antenna that's being induced by the radio waves, and then your radio amplifies that a lot, and that's where you get to hear music or whatever. But the problem is, with an EMP blast, it puts out so much energy that it's actually like a measurable amount, like a volt or two. And that might not seem like much, but for a microchip, a volt or two is in the wrong place, which is the problem with this, is when there's an EMP blast, it just goes in all the places. Every single bit is charged pretty much. And so then you just have arcing, and yeah, it's not that great, because it's like you just took a power supply and just put it in random spots on the circuit board, and then just one of those spots is going to probably have some issue. And so that's how you have the things failing. That's what I should do, right? I forgot. So the other half of that is also solar wind or solar flares, because the sun every so often blasts us with really bad radio waves and electromagnetic radiation, and I don't think the stuff that we have will last through some of the bigger solar flares that we could get, because if I'm not mistaken, in the 1850s or something like that, there was a really big flare. Now back then we didn't have much electronic equipment. However, back then we had, I believe, a telegraph system, and the electromagnetic waves were so powerful from the sun that it was enough to actually energize the telegraph lines and like make the telegraph lines all turn on and whatnot, and so you couldn't use them. And now if those were like, let's imagine instead of a telegraph line where like at the end it's a big chunky electromagnet and it's like really strong because it's the 1800s, and you know, the electronic stuff back then has to be pretty darn durable because it's like, what, steam powered or whatever. But nowadays, let's imagine you have like a tiny little Ethernet connector on that. Well, now that power comes in and just blows up your Ethernet adapter. But then there's also the issue of your Ethernet sensor in your computer also gets blasted by the same radio waves, and so all that power goes into that, and so it's like just a whole big mess. So I am not sure how it's gonna go. Let me know what you think I should add to it, because I'm not sure if it'll work, but it'd be fun to make a video about it for my main channel. I just want to make sure I have enough like good ideas, because I don't want to make the video and then someone be like, but you forgot this, or why don't you do this? You know what I mean? I have plenty of space in that container, like a lot of space. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. See ya.